Ooh, and we're live. Hello. How is everyone? Welcome to the third Baton Rouge.net user group stream. I'm trying to get my stuff situated here. How's everyone doing tonight? So, I'm working with the delay, but that's okay. It's just a little choppy. I don't know if I'm having internet issues or not. If y'all see me having internet issues, let me know. This is, from what I'm seeing, we're not getting off to a great start. So, yeah, is anyone out there watching .NET Conf going on right now? So, anything good out there that y'all seen that y'all like to talk about? Feel free to fire off in the chat. Tonight we're going to be talking about Blazor components and how to build Blazor components, quality Blazor components. Looks like I have two guests on the call. So we have Jeremy Knight and Bedford. If y'all like to introduce yourselves, feel free to. Hopefully the audio is working.
Hey, I'm Bedford. I'm just here.
Nice. All right,
I'm a SQL dude.
I'm a SQL dude. There's nothing wrong with that. They also have their SQL Pass stream going on tonight. That's why for now you're just going to see .NET Group presenting tonight, and the SQL Server Group is going to present next week. So I'm sure Bedford's going to head that one up.
I'm Jeremy Knight. I am the co-coordinator of the homotypical.net user group. We have kind of gone to a quarterly meeting at this point, but we may actually just try and bring everybody over to Baton Rouge if we stay virtual. So it would be really nice. I might be the oldest one on this call. I'm gonna date myself, but I've been developing for a very, very long time, and my latest favorite is Blazor. So he asked me to be on the call.
Yes, I asked Jeremy to join. Full disclosure, you will see pretty much all of the Blazor code I have ever written in this demo. I don't necessarily use it every day, but we do have some teams where I work that do. So usually the first thing I do is leverage components and see how well I can build them out. But outside of that, we'll cover some of the more high-level features that they offer and things I look for when I evaluate a UI framework. But we're getting to all that in a little while later. Is there a Slack chat? We have Discord. I don't know if anyone has a link handy for Discord.
I got it.
Cool. So I'm running the stream this week. I am lazy and I did not put any of the chat on the stream like Bedford has. So this is more of an experimental thing. If it goes well, we'll see what happens. I'm pretty sure my dog just opened my door. So if y'all hear him walking around, I apologize. Nothing like a live stream, right? So, good deal. All right. Well, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start with some announcements. We like to try to let people know what's going on in the Baton Rouge area. So first of all, like I said, we've introduced ourselves. My name is Bryan McCoy. I will be presenting tonight. I also run the Baton Rouge.net user group. We meet the second Wednesday of every month, and we have been for quite a while now. Hopefully that'll continue. We are kind of shaking things up a little bit now that we're going virtual, but hopefully by the beginning of next year we'll have a really good idea of how we're going to progress. So far things have been going pretty good. For now, if you want to talk to us, ask questions, we have the chat and we have Discord. I'm sure my co-host will be more than happy to monitor those and we can relay questions. I have chat up, so hopefully I can get to them if you have any questions. But we would like to interact with you as much as possible, so feel free to use those. We also, like I said, this is going to be a Baton Rouge.net user group meeting. Next Wednesday, we will have the Baton Rouge SQL Server user group meeting. They will be presenting on, I have it up here, SQL Engine in working style. So if you want to know, let's see, they will pull the curtain back on the SQL engine and show you how it thinks. So that sounds scary, but if you are interested in that kind of thing, please tune in next Wednesday. You'll have Bedford as your host, hopefully. No, I was joking. Bedford, good? No. I have been trying to find information on the analytics group. I know that their meetings have been a little hit and miss here lately, and they're kind of in flux. I believe they had a meeting in October. Before that, it was July. I don't know if they're planning on going back to in-person meetings or not, but as soon as I can find out more concrete information on what's going on with them, I'll be sure to let you know. You can check out their website at gobrain.org and see if there's any updates there. As far as upcoming events, it's kind of scarce right now. We're all in this virtual COVID season. I do know that .NET Conf is currently going on. I have been very impressed with it this year. There has been so much information coming out. Unfortunately, I did not get any of that information into my slides, but we will touch on some of the things that's coming out with Blazor. It's looking like it's going to be a real winner in this UI development space. So it looks like it's going in a great direction. I hope that continues. There are also, other things that they're talking about as far as gRPC and just different. I think I was watching a Spark talk earlier today, so they have a lot going on. There's also SQL Pass going on. They're virtual. That is one of the things that kind of split us up this week. A lot of our people are attending that virtually or speaking, so we pushed the SQL Server user group to next week, and we figured this would be a perfect opportunity for us to kind of do the split situation to see how that works out. If you ever actually been to any of our in-person meetings, they would typically go announcements, lightning round talks, and then we split into separate rooms. One room for Baton Rouge.NET user group, one for the Baton Rouge SQL Server user group. They each have their own presenter, and then we come back in the end for raffles or networking or whatever else. So we're experimenting with that kind of in this virtual space, see what happens. As usual, we are looking for speakers. If you'd like to get your mug on YouTube, hopefully we could get it there for you. So feel free to reach out to us. We offer any kind of speaking slot you'd like. If you want to do a 15-minute, 5-minute, 10-minute lightning round talk at the beginning of the stream, you're more than welcome to. It's a good way to get your feet wet. That's how I started. It was a great experience. So and I stuck with it. I think actually the month after that, I gave my first full-length talk. So, it's a really good way to get started. We'll help you with that. One good thing to do if you are interested in speaking, Microsoft is really good about giving you their content. They want you to talk about their products. So almost all the stuff that .NET Conf is doing, they're going to put their slides out. They're going to encourage you to use it. A lot of times they'll actually send us links to it, because we are part of the .NET Foundation, and they'll provide us with information to put into your hands, so that way you can actually have the content developed for you. All you have to do is present it. So, there's really no excuses. We can get you what you need. Just let us know. Let's see. One thing we do like to try to do is, it's funny. Why is it called Blazor? I actually have that in my slides. So if you stay tuned, you'll actually see. But one thing we like to do is, if you're hiring or looking for a job, feel free to sound off in the chat and try to get you all connected. Join our Discord. You can say or recruit, network in there. Typically, we have this meeting live in a room, so it's easier to point people out and say, hey, go over there. That person's hiring, or that person's looking for a job. But unfortunately, we're not able to do that in this day and age, but we still try. So without further ado, does anybody have anything they want to add or talk about? If not, and I know what I'm doing, I may actually be able to jump into the slides. Any questions from chat?
Might take a second. There's a bit of latency.
Let me give it a second before. I'm actually stalling so that way I can get all my stuff set up and my scene set up. Cool. Yeah, OBS is wonderful.
One thing I want to say is we're starting to do some game nights on the Discord server. So if anybody wants to go murder people in Among Us, that's what we're doing.
That's right. Thank you,
Super.
Bedford. Thank you, Bedford, for reminding me. I was supposed to say that. Yes. Are we going to do that right after this? Is that something that you still want to do?
Oh yeah. We were gonna see if we could do an impromptu thing after this. If anybody wants to stick around and play.
Yeah.
It's really fun on the Discord. Just everybody can chat during the meetings instead of doing it all over text. It's really fun.
Nice. So didn't y'all how'd the last gaming night for the user groups go?
Yeah, we threw one together last week, just kind of random on a Wednesday or something, and we played for like 3 hours. It was so much fun. It's hard to stop.
Nice. All right. Well, hey, that's a good way to get to know your fellow user group attendees. So if you're interested in that, again, join our Discord. Let Bedford or I know, or anyone in there. We can set something up and maybe get our community together and actually do some gaming.
Absolutely.
Nice. We don't have to just do development work. We can bond in other ways. So all right then. Well, I'm going to go ahead and see if this works. I'm going to transition over to my slides. So yeah. So Bedford and Jeremy, I am not muting y'all. So if y'all want to speak up, feel free. If I say anything wrong, call out questions that we have in chat. Oh, look, I see Ryan Richard. Nice. Thanks for joining us, Ryan. Ryan has been a real big team player here recently, speaking at our last two events. So we appreciate that. So what brings us together? Blazor components. Is anybody out there using Blazor currently? I know there's some teams where I work. I think Jeremy and a few others are using it. It's a real fascinating technology that Microsoft is backing. So let's see. Go ahead and go. I've already introduced myself, but here are some ways to contact me. I have all of my. Oh look, that's the wrong link for this demo, but this is what this demo was based off of. So about a year ago, I did a very similar talk on Razor Pages. So you can find the Razor Pages project in my GitHub, but you can also find this one in my GitHub too, and I'll get the actual link to this project and put it in the chat. And but I have other things out there, so feel free to wander around and see what I have available. So first off, why Blazor and why am I doing this talk? So I've been doing React Angular development for quite a while now. I basically did web forms, and then whenever ASP.NET MVC came out, I wasn't that big of a fan, so they also came out with Knockout in a similar around the same time frame. I adopted Knockout for a few years. I moved to Blue Cross. They were starting an Angular project, and it's part of the reason why I went there. So that was right up my alley. That was around Angular 1.3. I stuck with that until Angular 2.0-ish. And then once I left Blue Cross, I went somewhere else and did React development for a couple of years. So UI development has always been something that I've been big on and something that I've done. I've always leveraged components. Components have been major players in Angular and React. I know Angular didn't come out until around Angular 1.5, I believe, but that was a very happy day in my development lifetime. I was so excited because up until that point, we were doing everything as directives. And if you don't know what those are, good. So another reason why I want to look at Blazor is because I've been doing .NET development for as long as I can remember. I started .NET development in college. I did it at every professional job that I had. So if I can leverage that as much as I can, I want to. Instead of having to write JavaScript or TypeScript half the day, if I could just write C# all the time, that'd be great. So in this talk, we're mostly going to cover components, but before we get there, just so that way people have an idea of what I'm talking about, we're going to cover some of the high-level, just basic high-level features of Blazor. So that way, just you understand the concept that I'm mentioning or the features that I'm mentioning, and maybe help you follow along a little bit easier. So, oh, one other thing. Whenever I take to evaluating a UI framework, and it could be anything, Vue, React, the first thing I do is I start building components. So whenever I started looking at Blazor, the first thing I did was I started building components. I wanted to see how far I can push the components, because if they didn't meet my needs, then I wasn't going to use the framework. So that's why you get what you're going to get here. I don't have a lot of Blazor experience. All my experience is wrapped up in the components that you're going to see here. Once I've decided that it can actually accomplish what I feel like it needs to accomplish, then I start evaluating more. So if you enjoy this and you want to know more about Blazor, let us know. Maybe in January we can do more of a deep dive into different features that Blazor offers. I'd be up for doing that if that's something that you'd be interested in. Just let us know in the comments. So first off, what is Blazor? It's Microsoft's SPA. It's their single page application. It's their competition to React and Angular or whatever other JavaScript framework you want out there. It's open source. You can see it. You can add pull requests. You can build components for it. You can extend it. It's out there for your consumption. They've been pretty open about the development on it, so that way you can actually see where it's going. I know here recently with Framework 5, there has been a lot of quality of life improvements. There have been things like hot reloading and enhanced debugging features that have been added. If you're looking for a SPA framework that works well with Visual Studio, this is the one you want to use. It blows everything else out of the water. They do offer both a client-side and a server-side solution with this. So that is, if that is something, or if those are two needs that you need to fill. I know for the longest time with JavaScript, a lot of people were fussing that, JavaScript couldn't do the server-side rendering right, or they couldn't quite get it. I know there's been a lot of things that help advance that, but with Blazor, it's a bit of a first-class citizen. So, and the answer to earlier, Blazor is the combination of the words browser and Razor, and Razor is Microsoft's Razor syntax that they use in almost all of their technologies. So what is Blazor not? It's kind of an awkward statement, but it's not web forms with Ajax control panels. I know some people may have that fear that it is not what it is. It actually, if you're doing a server side, it actually has a SignalR connection that it uses to update the specific parts of the DOM that you're looking to update, and not the entire page. And you don't actually have to plug in any kind of Ajax references or anything like that. It's not Silverlight, so it's built, the client side is built on WebAssembly, so there's no third-party plugins. It's an open web standard. It's something that most browsers, almost all modern browsers support. So it's not something you have to worry about Microsoft sunsetting a technology that it's dependent on. And it is not only a JavaScript framework. You can use JavaScript in it, but why would you want to when you can just write C#? I was just joking. So when and why do you want to use Blazor? You want to use it whenever you need a SPA framework and you don't want to write JavaScript, or a lot of it. So if you want that single page application feel, but you also have SEO reasons where the server-side rendering is really going to come into the marketing aspect of your application, this is a viable solution. If you want to work in your Microsoft ecosystem with Visual Studio, with C#, a lot of open source packages that you're probably already using in your web APIs, this is going to be the framework for you. This is going to be where you want to be. This is kind of a half-hearted slide, but as we mentioned, on the client side, it runs on WebAssembly. It uses the Mono WASM, so it's not actually using like .NET Core or anything like that. It's actually using a version of Mono, which I believe is going to be pulled in to maybe...
After yesterday, that's not true.
Oh, it's not anymore? Okay, never mind. So, thank you, Jeremy. That's why I have Jeremy on the call. So, but anyway, it uses Mono WASM. And then on the other side, if you want the server-side rendering, like I said, it leverages Signal R, so that way it opens up that socket going back and forth to the server to update the DOM elements. I will say, I know there are some concerns and people have voiced that with the client side. It does actually have to essentially download your .NET packages-ish on the front end. There's been a lot of improvements that are being made with Framework 5 that's going to help offset that initial load time that you may see with Blazor. So far in the production apps that I've seen, it really hasn't been an issue, but it is a valid concern if you have it. So here, this is the basic makeup of a Blazor page. So as you can see on my screen, hopefully we'll review this a little bit more whenever we get to the code. But a page basically starts with a page directive at the top that is going to have some type of route that will automatically get picked up and by the route engine and actually help direct you to the page that you want to go to. It has your using directives, just like you would have in a class file. They have the Inject Directive. Again, these two are optional, and so is the code directive. The Inject Directive is a dependency injection. So if you have some services that your page is dependent on, you actually get to leverage dependency injection, and it looks and feels just like what you would get in your web API. Our code directive is where we're actually going to start writing our C# code, so that way you keep your DOM elements and your C# code for the most part separated, so there's no mixing between the two to keep them clean. And then you can also put your query strings inside the route inside the page directive. So in going over these features that kind of get shipped out of the box, you do get routing. I know a lot of client-side stuff, most of this is going to be directed towards React, where you don't get routing out of the box, but you kind of get a very opinionated version of, or an opinion of what routing you should be using. Microsoft ships theirs with Blazor. Again, so you can see you use the page directive, you give it a route that you actually want, that whenever you want to navigate to the page, it does accept query strings as parameters. You can do things, so if you can see this query string that I have here, it actually says it accepts a query string parameter of ID, and you can put constraints on those. So we want to constrain our ID to be an integer, and you can see here that they offer different types as far as date, time, decimals, doubles, and so on, of what type of parameters that you can have. It does, Blazor does offer support for optional parameters. It's a little bit wonky, but essentially what you'd have to do is you'd have the route twice at the top of the page, one with the query string parameter and one without, and the actual parameter that you would be binding to in your C# code would just be nullable. But it is, you can accomplish it that way if you need to. So Blazor does ship with forms. It takes a model. You could call it a view model. You can actually have it be an entity model if you're brave, however you want to set that up, but it does take a model. It does provide a context for binding to that model, so that way it kind of hides a lot of that stuff behind the scenes for you. The form does come with some validation events, or some events. You have your on submit, on your valid submit, and on your invalid submit, and you can actually handle those separately. So the validation is also built in for the most part. It uses the typical validation attributes that you probably use in your entity models for the most part. It does give you the option to wire in other things that you're used to, like I mentioned earlier. If there's some NuGet packages out there that you're used to using, like Fluent Validation. I know I'm a fan of Fluent Validation. I use it in my web APIs. That way you could just decorate your view models or your models with the validation attributes. The form will actually invoke that validation for you whenever the form hits submit and return the errors that actually happen. So they do have support for that, and they do have support for custom validating as well. Excuse me. as I mentioned earlier, you can call JavaScript. So Blazor provides you with this IJS runtime that you can inject into your code. It allows you to make JavaScript calls if you need to. One thing you probably want to try to avoid is manipulating DOM elements with it. Do that as much as you can with the C Sharp and the code behind. That way things don't kind of get out of sync. You can also, which I found interesting, is invoke your C Sharp with JavaScript if need be. So that two-way communication does exist. I know I've seen some people working with Bootstrap and Bootstrap 4 and needing to invoke some JavaScript stuff to have the Bootstrap animations or have your modal show up or something of that nature. So they do have this JavaScript interop if you want to do that. So it is available to you. And one of my favorite features, and always one of my favorite features, is dependency injection. Once you see wiring up the dependency injection, I'll show you an example of that if I remember whenever we look at the code. It looks a lot like what you would get in your .NET Core applications, where you can wire up a transient, a singleton, or your scope dependencies. Components also can handle their own dependencies, which is really nice. So that way you can keep as much encapsulated inside your component as you want. So that way we stay true to our solid principles where we accept the dependencies into it. And that's a big concern I have with dependencies. With components is, can it accept these values? Can it accept these dependencies? And what that actually looks like. So there is model binding. It is done pretty much, out of the box. There are different ways you can handle binding attributes and binding properties. We'll look at some of that whenever we start looking at the components. But it does, for the most part, handle a lot of this stuff for you to make your life easier. So that's always important in a UI framework. I know if you're coming from something like React, where they kind of have model binding, but you also kind of have to, have your state controllers there. That's not something that you necessarily need here in Blazor. So their model binding is a little bit closer to what you would see in an Angular application. So, and then what we're all here to see, or at least what I'm here to talk about, is components. So really, a component is a page without a page directive. It looks and acts, well, it doesn't act, but it looks really similar. A lot of the stuff that you can do in a page, you can do in a component, and you can turn a component into a page if you want to add a page directive at the top in a route. Let's see, that's Razor extension, how's that? All right, it does accept parameters. One thing that is really neat that you'll forget about if you're ever working in a Blazor application is this imports.razor page. So a lot of times you'll just be looking through somebody's code and you'll see they slapped a component on the page, and you look up at the top and there's no using statement. So you build your own component, but you put it in a different folder or a different namespace, and you slap it on your page and it doesn't show up and you get errors. It's because of whoever wrote that initial component made sure to put their using statement in this imports.razor page. I know it's tripped me up, and I've seen it trip a couple of other people up. So I thought it was important enough to bring up here. And again, we'll look at that whenever we get there. So in the demo, we'll take a quick tour through Blazor, and I'll point out some of the stuff that we talked about here before we get into the actual components. So this is an idea of what a component looks like. These are the properties that you can actually have on there. There are different ways to pass in properties and access properties inside of components. We're just going to talk about this way, where you essentially have a property on the component and you pass it in explicitly. But you can also pass it in through an expression, which is where you actually have a property inside your Razor page that's bound to, that can change for whatever reason. Obviously, the first one, literal, is we're just going to pass it in a number, say 42. And then you also have directives. As of right now, and I don't know if this has changed with some recent announcements, you don't actually get to make your own directives. A lot of these directives are going to be like your on-click events. These are things that are built into the framework that they don't really give you, they as in Microsoft don't really give you access to, but you can use them. There are a lot of them out there. I've read in places where they are messing with the idea of actually giving you the ability to write your own directives. I know in Angular, the difference between a directive and a component was very important to me, and they both solve two different problems. That may be something I'd like to see here. An example of that would be a security or an authorization directive. I know if you're looking at React, you would use what they would call higher order components to actually hide a child component if somebody doesn't have access to it. In Angular, my preferred way of doing it is actually putting a directive on there and basically saying, does this person have this role? If so, render this DOM element. If not, so that's something that I would really like to have access to, but I've done React development where I didn't have directives that I was able to write, and we accomplished that through higher order components, and that's essentially what we would have to do here. Event callbacks. This is important. They also have actions. I'm not really going to talk about actions because I would just rather slap an event callback on there. If anybody has a reason why they would use an action over an event callback, feel free to say so in the chat. I'd be open to listening. The big thing with the event callback, so what this is going to be is this is going to be us passing a function into a component from the parent. And after that function gets invoked, we want to make sure that the parent knows that some state has changed. And the way we accomplish this is by using the event callback. It'll automatically execute the state has changed on the parent. And as we get in here, you'll see that that's going to be really important when it comes down to us making our own components that we want to be reusable. So, why do we want to use components? My favorite example of this is a submit and cancel button on a form. I don't know how many times I have been in an argument with somebody over whether the submit button is blue and goes on the left and the cancel button is white and goes on the right. To only open up the application to see that the developer put the cancel button in white on the left and the submit button in blue on the right. And then it goes to QA and they say they want the cancel button to be a link. So now we have to go and change everything and make sure that it's consistent throughout the entire application. So one thing I do with components is try to limit those mistakes. So if I can make this really easy for somebody to work in, that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I try to accomplish with components, and that's why it's really important to me. So again, with dry, you don't want to repeat yourself. I know a lot of people tend to think of not repeating yourself as business logic or not repeating business logic throughout the app. In UI development, I consider styles business logic or CSS classes business logic because that's not something that I want to have to remember or rewrite throughout the app. I just want something that's taken care of for me. We could also talk about rapidly developing stuff. Hopefully in the demo that I show you, you'll actually see how we accomplish that by reducing having to rewrite stuff over and over again or copy and pasting code throughout our app because somebody did it on this page and I want to do it on that page over there. So one thing that I've preached for a very long time is everything is a component. Everything in the UI should be a component. Make it a component. Think of it as a class. It is this piece of functionality that you have encapsulated that you know it accepts some parameters in, it does some stuff, and gives you something back. In this case, what it gives you back is rendered DOM elements. But rendered DOM elements are just as important as the business logic because if you can't render the results to the screen, then why have it? This is an image that I stole from from React's website that kind of gives you a visual of what I'm talking about when I say everything is a component and everything should be a component. Is each of these boxes that are circled in a color. So the yellow would be the parent component, which it has some child components, which would be the search box and the rendered at the bottom. The parent component is actually just going to facilitate the communication between the two. So it's almost like a facade of sorts. Inside the grid component, they have a header component, and then they have their row components. So whenever we start looking at some of this, spoiler alert, you're going to start to see what this looks like. So enough of me blabbing about slides that I don't remember. We're going to go ahead and jump in. So let's see if this works. All right, cool. So what I've done here is I've taken the basic app that, .NET New Blazor, and I've added some stuff to it. So what we see here is the actual application. Whenever you load this up, you get your home, your counter, so you can actually click fetch data, which is a mock data thing. This is some stuff that I was playing with forms. We're not going to go over that much, but this is what we're going to look at. So I have a simple to-do app. So we can type in some text, we can add it, we can remove it. The paging doesn't actually work. I just have it on there so that I can actually show you something, but typically, in your applications, you have a grid, you're probably going to have paging. I know one funny thing I always hear is that every app that exists is just a big to-do app. So this covers a lot of stuff that you would do in your day. So we have a form that submits, we have our add, our cancel, we have our grid that renders some objects out to it, and then it lets us act on those objects, and then of course we need a page. So if we switch over to the code, please don't be mad at me. One thing that I learned here recently, I don't want to show you that, with all the stuff going on for .NET Conf, is that apparently you should use a light theme for presenting, and then you do your dark theme for coding. So I switched to the light theme for this, so I'm really thrown off, but let's see if we can close all but this, so that way I don't give away too many of my secrets. But first, you can see here over to our left, this is the basic structure of our Blazor app. It still has this silly www root folder. You put your CSS in, whatever other web dependencies that you have. We have a pages folder where you can actually see your Razor pages. So you can see here up at the top, we have our to-do v1. It has our page directive with our route, our URL, so that way the routing knows where to go. I have a models folder, so you can actually see here's our to-do item model. I don't know if I actually use that or not, but we'll see in a second. And then we have a components folder that, in this case, they're kind of feature specific. Probably at the end of the day, don't know if I'd set this up like this in a production app, but this is close to what I would have. So I have components that are feature specific that relate to the page that the feature is for, and then down here I'll actually have the shared components that are used for the pages and our reusable components. So Blazor does ship with a layout. This is going to be our main layout. You can see it has a navigation component, which is going to be this over here to the side. It has this body directive, which is going to be what the router uses to render these pages. So it's going to render it in this section here. So for us, it's going to be in this area right here. Right here. So that'll give you a little idea of what's going on. We could look at this imports file. Again, this is where I told you, like, these are kind of like a global import file, so that way you don't have to put usings for things like shared controllers that you're going to use throughout your entire application. So it kind of cleans up your pages a little bit. Razor, this is, oh yeah, this is the main, this is like the main application. I know I don't know what it's actually called, but you'll see this in Angular and React, where essentially your Razor context is like your parent level component that actually gets passed through. So that's what this is. You probably don't have to mess with this too much. I know this is probably one of the first times I've actually opened that up to look at it. So then we have our program file. I think, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, they may be adding a startup, but as of right now, you have your program file. You can see here, this is where I'm actually registering my dependencies. So I have a test service of my test service. So you can actually come in here to register your dependencies. So that's a quick overview of just, what's going on with Razor. But this is what we want to talk about. So we have our Razor, we have our to-do page. We can enter our stuff, we can remove it. This is whenever you're going to build this is probably the first thing you're going to do. You're going to come in here, you're just going to type it all out. So we have a lot of stuff going on. We have a form that is going to encapsulate our input, and then we have our buttons, which would be our add and our cancel. Let's see, here you can see a bind directive, which is telling it that, hey, I want to bind it to a new to-do. If you come down here to the code, it's just a string, nothing important here. So it's just a string that gets bound to that element. We fill it out. We have our function to add the to-do, and we're going to add it to just list that we have, instantiate it. We'll add our new to-do. We'll give it the title that gets set from our property, and then we're going to empty our property so that way our text box gets emptied whenever we're done. And then if we want to cancel, we're just going to empty the to-do string property. And when let's see. So this is creating a new to-do item. Our to-do item has a is done. So whenever in the grid, you see the buttons. If you look right here, we actually want to click mark done. We pass in the title. So I know this is going to be buggy because we're not using IDs, but that's okay. It's just a demo. But if it comes in here, it'll grab it, it'll mark it as done, so that way it actually clears out our grid for us. So that is all the functionality we have. So you can see here, we hit our cancel button, it goes away, check, cool. So whenever this gets submitted, the first thing I would look at is there's a lot of things in here that this very simple page seems a tad bit overwhelming. There's the form, there's the table, you have these classes that are all over the place, types. It'd be really easy for somebody to come in here. Here's our for each, where it's actually going to loop through our to-dos. If they're not done, it's going to render them to the page. So how easy would it be for somebody to come in behind you, select, copy, make a new page, and paste it in there, and then you'd have all of this tables, all of these styles, all this stuff duplicated. You can see stuff like this where we want the primary button, we want the danger button, so we want the mark done button to be red. There's just a lot of stuff going on in here that none of this is just reusable. So go to version 2. As you can see here, cleaned it up a little bit. We still have our to-do properties. We still have our add to-do. We still have our mark done. All of this is the same. Oh yeah, I didn't show we also have our, oh wait, no, not that one, this one. Down here, we have our faux pagination, right? You want to add that to the page, but these are things that can operate inside of isolation and not be duplicated. So here I just started building out the functions because we actually want to do the paging on the list. And my thought here is that everybody gets their data differently. Well, there's two different ways, right? It's either you can get the data, all of the data whenever the page initially loads, and then you're paging through data that you already have in memory, or you can have server-side paging. So the idea here would be just to tie in the functions that need to be executed on the list that gets passed in. So I didn't get to implementing it yet, but that's the idea we have around it. So now you can actually see here that our parent level component is acting more as a facade, right? It's taking in the add to do. That's not, it's here, we're taking in a list of to-dos. When we mark it done, it's going to remove it from our list for us by calling here. So all of the dependencies all of the functional and data dependencies that these components need are being passed into them. So technically, these can be reused for different to-dos on different pages. So if we go into, going to be here, go to to-dos. So if we go look at our to-do input, we can see here, this is a little bit more manageable. So we can actually come in here and see what's going on fairly easily. I don't really have to scroll for it. We can see that this is already automatically like taking control of our add and our cancel. And as you can see here, I actually have a cancel button and a submit button, which is going to be really nice because now I know that whatever submit button we have in our app that's using this component, its styles are going to be in the same place. So if we come into shared controls and we look at our submit button, now we just have this silly class in a single place. This is a very dumb component. All it does is takes in an on-click event and a title. So you can actually see the title getting rendered here. You can see the on-click event that comes in, and then we just invoke that on-click event. And it doesn't have to worry about anything else. We can actually use the submit button wherever we want, and we know that our stylings will be consistent. So if we go back to here, let's go back to the we'll go back to the input. We can see that we did the same thing with cancel. So our cancel button will actually have our cancel styles, have our cancel text, and if we look at the page, we can actually see that the look, feel, and functionality is the exact same. We just know that if we have to go look at the code behind, it's going to be a little bit cleaner to look at, so we can actually target in on what we want to deal with and actually focus on that. So we can go and look at our table. So now this is a little different. We have a to-do table header, and we have a to-do table row. Again, the to-do table row is going to take in some dependency. It's going to take in some method to actually get invoked to get it marked as done. You can actually see here that this is our event callback. So this table component is actually taking in the mark done as a dependency from its parent and just invoking it with the title. So we're passing in the title so that way we could, if we look here, oh no, it's going to be in the to-do table. Yeah, it's going to come from the parent page. So you actually see the mark done. It's taking in the title so that way it could do its logic. So it's that easy. We have a to-do table in here. We can actually separate some of this stuff. It's a little bit cleaner and neater to work in. If you need to go in and full with the header, you know exactly where to go. This is just some table stuff with some header text in it. If you want to go look at the table row, you can look in here. It's pretty simple, nothing fancy. And then we actually use that same methodology that we used before to create our small buttons. So that's another issue that I've had in the past where people would get these buttons in an inconsistent order. I've even had cases where people changed the color to green because it means go and it made them feel good, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, you don't want these inconsistencies throughout your app, and you don't want people fumbling around trying to figure out, what is the actual class that I'm supposed to be using on here. Don't do that. Just here, use your delete button, your submit button. If you need to add more buttons, just go and add them. They don't take a whole lot of effort. I mean, really, the submit button small is going to look just like the bigger submit button, but it's going to have this additional class on it. Again, it takes in the event callback. You click it, and gets invoked and sends stuff back to the top. So this looks better, but it still has issues, right? This to-do table is kind of reusable if you're dealing with to-dos, but it's not reusable if you're using anything other than a to-do. So whenever you dive down into here, you're still going to be duplicating this everywhere. You're still going to be duplicating, these things. You're going to go into the headers, you're still going to be duplicating all of this. So it still doesn't necessarily get us where we want to be, but it's closer and it's cleaner. So then we go to version 3. And as you can see, there's the pagination went away. And in a few seconds, we're going to easily make other things go away. But we're going to go ahead and show what version 3 is. And this is what I came here and I aim to do. So, no pun intended. Again, functionality is still the same. Our parent page handles adding of to-dos, it handles marking done, and it handles actually containing your state. And it's just going to pass it down to your components and let your components do stuff with it. So first we'll go into do table input. I don't think this has changed much other than here. So earlier I was mentioning that, hey, we swapped, the cancel buttons on the left, the submit buttons on the right, or no, vice versa. Well, we don't want people to have to think and make that decision for themselves. We'll just say, here's a form button component. You put your submit action on there, and you put your cancel or your submit function on there and your cancel function on there, and you don't ever have to worry about putting a button in a form again. So we just handle that for you, nice and easy. And I do understand that sometimes you want things to be different on different pages for whatever reason, if you're working with designers. So this may not solve 100% of your cases, but you're probably going to get 80% of them, and we're okay with that. So I didn't do the input button because...
Hey, Bryan.
Yeah, what's up?
I'm getting some feedback that it's spinning for some people when they refresh. Let me get with chat and make sure that everything's okay.
See if you... my page says everything's healthy.
It's intermittent. I'm actually seeing everything fine.
Maybe I should tell the wife to stop streaming. Yeah, let me see. My dropped frames is only like 4.7%.
Okay, it's looking good for some people.
Okay, yeah, all right. Yeah, thanks for letting me know. I'll see. Well, I can't really keep an eye on it, but I'll try to keep an eye on it and see. Hopefully, feel free to come back later and watch the replay of the stream. That'd be nice. We'd appreciate that. So we are getting some looks good in there. Oh, look, I see a bunch of familiar faces. James and Nick, nice seeing y'all. Haven't seen y'all in a while. Jeremy, Cronin. That is, if you ever, sorry to break away from the stream, but if you ever get a .NET user group email, he's the one who sends it to you. So if you have any spam issues, make sure you call him out. All right, now. Bryan needs more monitors. Yeah, for real. So let's see, we were talking about the form buttons, right? So if we go and actually look at our form button control, it's super simple. It just has your submit button and your cancel button. If we ever want to come in here and switch what's on the left and what's on the right, you copy, paste, drag it up. One nifty little thing that you're going to see here is this has delegate. So what that actually does is if it has a function tied to it, it'll render. If not, it won't. So if there's ever a situation where you say you don't want to, oh wait, it's not this one. If ever a situation where you actually don't want the cancel button to show up, you actually just come in here and take it out. So if we come in and we start this again, oh look, you see the WASM. I actually didn't even have it running. So WASM in action. So y'all can see I wasn't lying to you. So actually come in here and you can see the cancel buttons went away. So that way, again, we're trying to take all of the work away from the developer and make it to where they don't make any mistakes, or at least make it harder for them to make mistakes. That's been a feature that's been really nice, especially whenever you get to other things like your table row buttons, which we'll look at in a second. But that is how I would handle form inputs. So if we look here, Our table now looks drastically different, but that's okay because we want it to. So again, this is what gets rendered out. This is what V2 looked like. This is what V3 looks like. So if you look here, it's a table view, table header template, table body template, text columns, and button columns. Nothing in here says to do. So if we want to reuse this or extend this in any way, shape, or form, we can. What we actually do up at the top is we just have a data attribute or a data parameter that we bind our to-dos that are not done to. Our table header gets a title property, and our text column just gets a to-do title, and then the button column, you get a submit mark done and a delete mark done. We're not actually storing these anywhere, so just to get them off of the page, we just mark them as done, whether we actually did them or not. That way we get full credit. You can see here again, it's taking in a parameter of to-dos. So this is a to-do table view, but inside of here, the table view we're actually building is different. So if you ever do React, you would see this. Essentially, we have these rendered child components. All of this stuff is being built in this project. So if we come and look here, we can actually see our table view, our table text column, table headers, and we can actually just pass the children in. It's a little bit more to that, and we'll look at that. So you can see up here we have a table header template, and we have here a table body template. If you were to come into the table view, right here they have the I have this table header template render fragment is what they actually call them. So we actually have these three properties of these three render fragment properties. This one actually takes an item of type T of this type param, which is going to be our data, which is in turn going to be our to-dos that we're getting passed in. So all it knows is that it accepts some data. It's going to loop to render our rows out. It's going to pass it into this table body template, which is, again, is just another render fragment where we can actually look.
While you're looking that up, you have a question.
Oh, sweet.
What program are you using on your Mac? Is that for Mac or is that
It's Rider.
VS Code?
It is
Rider.
Rider.
Okay.
It is Rider. Yes. It has been the best, in my opinion, on a Mac. I've been doing Mac development for ever. VS Code is close. They've gotten better with the recent release, because before it actually didn't format your HTML, if I remember correctly. It would only format the code, the C# code, and I couldn't live with that. So I went to Visual Studio for Mac, and I just, blacked out. I don't remember. There's a lot of painful memories there. I prefer not to talk about it. So I then moved to Rider. And I do know, I hit up our guy. We usually get JetBrains subscriptions. I'm trying to get my hands on those, and maybe we can raffle them off in the chat at some point. So if you stick around or come back, there's a chance you can actually win a free year subscription for JetBrains. You can use it for Rider. That's what I use it for. You can use it for ReSharper. I think you could actually do both. So if that's something you're interested in. But yeah, this is Rider. So so all right, we're looking at our table view, right? So our table view takes in, let me see if I can pull this to the side. And come in here. So we have our table view. Here's our table view. This is what it looks like in the page. If you've ever used Telerik controls, I'm sorry, but this is kind of what you're going to get. We just built it ourselves. I have done this in Angular because of all the reasons that I expressed earlier, is that it's really easy to get inconsistencies in your application whenever your developers don't communicate, because we all know we have that problem. And so far, Blazor has been really good about giving me all the tools that I need to accomplish this. So like I said, you can see here our render fragments, which are going to match up to our other components. And again, if we want to look at this table header template, we can come in here. I believe it's just this guy right here. No, it's not it. Oh, which one is it? Is it this one? Yeah, it's the text column. Oh yeah, look, there's like nothing to it. So that makes it really confusing to use. So if you look here, our text column, but we actually need to use, there's going to be a row table body template. Where's my, anybody see my table body template? Oh, this goes into here. Anyway, why is it? Stall. Table body template. I don't know. Oh, because it's not actually a thing. It's just, that's right. Sorry. I should have reviewed this a little bit more before I did it. So if we come in here, so table header template, it takes in the header. Come in here, add table header template. Where is it at? So there's our table header, which is, you know, really nothing, just a title. And if we wanted to add more table headers to our table, we would actually just come in here. Oh, actually I have two already. So you come in here, add another one. So that way we can actually build our grid out. But this isn't actually a component because the way the render fragment is set up, it actually just takes in, that's right, it actually just takes in these components, which are the different types of columns that we wanted to support, and then loops over them and renders those columns out. And I'll show you that inside here. So that's where it is. It just comes in here and loops through them. So this is actually going to, wait, yeah. And it just loops through the different table body templates, passes the item that gets rendered out into, is that right? Table text column. Man, I don't remember. I apologize. I don't know why it's not, anyway. Oh. No, that's the other one. So anyway, okay, we'll just keep going. So it takes in the text column, and it takes in the table button. So if you go look into the table buttons, this is actually going to look incredibly similar to the other form buttons that we had, where we're actually going to render our small button and render our delete button. So if you look here, this is the component that's actually getting rendered as it loops through. So we can control them based off of what functions we actually have bound to them. So in this case, if you have an edit, or you have a details, or any other type of buttons that you want to add to this row to do specific things to the item that's being rendered, you can actually create those buttons, put them inside here, and just check to see if a function is being passed in order to get them rendered. So let's see if any of that made sense. Again, what we end up with is this table view right here. And if we were to go and create another page that needed a table, obviously we could just copy and paste this, move it over, because we know that nothing here is technically being duplicated. The things that you would actually change are the things that this table is dependent on, not CSS styles or any type of business logic. So you would actually get your data, you would change your table headers so that way they'd be consistent. They would look consistent. You can actually add functionality to these to take in parameters such as sorts, drag and drop stuff, anything like that. If you wanted to do it, that's a lot of extra work. But if you want that functionality to actually propagate across your entire app and be reusable, that's how you would actually approach this. So, do we have any other questions? That's pretty much my spiel on components and how we actually want them built out to where they'll be reusable, because right now, like I said, the only dependencies it has are the functions that you give it and the actual item that's getting rendered. So we'll wait and see if chat catches up any.
Yeah, and just thanks for sticking it out through all the technical difficulties. We got apparently YouTube down is trending on Twitter, and I just checked it out, and it absolutely is.
That makes me feel better.
And there's a giant surge of reports on down detector right now for the YouTube site too.
Well, you can take it one of two ways, right? Because either you killed YouTube.
That's right.
Yeah, you destroyed YouTube, man.
That's right. I took them out. So yeah.
Too many likes per second.
That's right. No, but I appreciate everybody sticking it out. If you have any Blazor questions, feel free to sound off. I might be able to answer them. If not, I'll put Bedford on the spot and see what happens. Like I said, the stuff I'm seeing in Blazor, it's coming across nicely. Microsoft is, at first they were putting some effort into it. Now it looks like they're putting a lot of effort into it. So it'd be a real competitor. I know one thing that I've always talked about is, this is a UI framework for .NET developers. You're not going to bring this to your Node developers and say, hey, we're going to use a Blazor front end with a Node back end. Just let them stay in their JavaScript ecosystem. But now it's nice that Microsoft has a product that can compete with it, and it's working out well. Other things that you could look at is they do have support for PWAs. As you noticed earlier, I don't know if you noticed it, but I didn't actually have my project running. It was just loaded. So all the dependencies were actually loaded in the DOM already, or in the browser already. And we were able to click through the app and do stuff without, having to talk back to a server.
That's actually something that's pretty interesting too, because a lot of people don't realize that you can still do the offline service worker PWA for Blazor server.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You have to do it manually. They don't give you the little checkbox like they do for Blazor WASM. But you can still do as long as you go pull the right service worker down, you can still do a PWA using Blazor server.
Nice. So yeah, let's see if I can do this one last time. I will switch back over to our intermission so you can see two boxes. One, I don't know, one for Bedford and one for Jeremy. Oh, look, Bedford's going to put his camera back on.
I'll put my camera on.
So Jeremy promised us he'll have a camera one day. He just doesn't know when. No, I'm just joking. No, but yeah, this is kind of what has come of the .NET user group for Baton Rouge. I hope y'all like it. Thanks for showing up and participating. Like I said,
thanks for coming.
Yeah, we'll stick around for a little bit if you have any questions or if you want to see something else. I will get this up on. I did make some updates to this for the buttons, and get this up on my GitHub repo. But if you want to take a look at any of the table view stuff, that's all up there. I believe the name of the repo is Star Wars Stuff. Most of my demos revolve around Star Wars. I have one that API that I did that I deployed to Azure that returns the temperature of various planets. They are fairly accurate as far as lore wise, but of course not real time. So, but yeah. Let's see if I see. I don't know. Like I said, nice to see some of you guys here. Maybe one day we'll get back to getting to hang out in person, but for now, like I said, virtually. If anybody is up for speaking, let me know. If y'all want to come hang out on stream, let me know. Thank you so much to Jeremy and Bedford for hanging out with me tonight. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So. But yeah, it's definitely speaking, or just come and hang out in the Discord server, or if anybody wants to help or try out live streaming or anything like that, we can provide help and resources and all of that. If I don't see William here, but William has been hired by Microsoft.
Oh, just out him. No, I'm checking.
They've taken him from us.
That's right.
And there must be retribution.
No.
So
Actually, you know what you do. You know what the point is here is that William is not the first user group leader that we've had that's gotten poached by Microsoft. So,
yeah, but one of them got to stay here in Baton Rouge.
One of them did get to stay here in Baton Rouge. Before COVID, they were talking about maybe moving, but I don't. Yeah, but so far he's here in Baton Rouge. William likes to travel and be cultural, so his kids off, whatever. And getting too personal and he's not here. But anyway, so, yeah. So, I mean, I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying that being a member or being an active member of the user group is going to get you to Microsoft, but it's worked for other people in the past. So if you want to get involved, just to kind of get that ball rolling.
I mean, it helps. It certainly helps. So. And it definitely... it looks good on interviews and resumes and stuff whenever you're doing this kind of stuff, because it shows that you're into it. That this is you take time out of your day, extra time to do this stuff and facilitate it for others, and and it's just nice once you build a little community and everybody's hanging out. It's great.
That's
Jackson didn't go to Microsoft, did he?
No, he went to that voter thing.
Yeah, okay.
Well, we can say he went to Microsoft. Nobody here knows. So Jackson went to Microsoft. No, it's just just to visit. He bought some swag and came back. But yeah,
I do have a question for you, Brian.
Okay.
So you said earlier that Microsoft provides materials for speakers, or that you can use their materials. I'm trying to...
Both.
Go to .NET Foundation. They have a ton of stuff. They've got entire presentations laid out. They've got entire tutorials laid out. You can grab it all.
Yep, it's all there, and it's for you to use. There's a GitHub repo. They have the examples. They have the slides. If any of you were around, I think it was last October, or maybe last November, .NET Conf last year was actually in October, right? We had our .NET Conf event in November because of how the timing worked out. I wish we could have done that again this year. If I was a better user group leader, we probably could have. But yeah, Microsoft basically, once we said, hey, we'll do the event, they sent me slides, they sent me swag. We handed the swag out at the user group meetings. And basically what I did was I took their slides and jammed a bunch of stuff together and did a recap of .NET Conf, and it worked out great. And I wanted to do it again this year, but they send those links out, and they're all public, and they say take it, promote it. I mean, a lot of it is marketing fluff, so you can just take that out. That's what I do, but the material's there. So if you ever had any inclination that you may enjoy live speaking, grab one of those slides, grab one of those demos. We'll give you 15 minutes. That way you don't have to commit to the full 45. Not everybody likes to sit up here and ramble and fumble through stuff. I know personally I would much rather be doing this in person. I have slowly come around to the live streaming thing. I may have to invest in a mic and a cam and some lighting at some point, but yeah, no, that's, it's the way it is at this point. So, but yeah, no, anybody have anything else? If not, y'all want to hop over to the Discord server, and maybe we can get an Among Us game going or something like that. If anybody's interested in that, I may be able to weasel into it. We'll see.
Yeah, I'll be in the gaming channel, and just if y'all want to play, just come ping me in there, and I'll get it going.
Nice. All right, Jeremy, you have anything you want to say? The last words? Promote stuff?
No, that's about it. I mean, that's good presentation on the components. It's you were talking earlier about where Microsoft is going with it, and I don't know. I kind of think that WASM is really one of the first real technology spikes that we've had in web development, because everything else has just kind of been incremental change, incremental change, incremental change, one framework after another that really doesn't do anything new. And WASM introduces so much. I mean, whether you're in Rust, Go, .NET, which all of them support WASM, all of them have WASM frameworks. The ability to not do JavaScript on the web, for somebody who has been doing JavaScript since 898, is a huge benefit.
Yes.
Onboarding is one of the biggest things we've seen. You mentioned earlier, we have a lot of people from Southeastern at work. I hand them a Blazor app, and they're like, "Oh, great!" I hand them an Angular app or something, and they go, "Well, hold on, give me 2-3 weeks to wrap my head around this."
Yeah, no, it's nice. I know for us at Blue Cross, it's a bunch of people who despise JavaScript. So, I mean,
as they should.
It's really that bad. So, you hand them a Blazor app, and they're like, "Okay, we can get behind this." So, I mean, it's been nice. I know, like I said, with the Framework 5, there's been a lot of nice improvements, like hot reloading. Let's face it, that's something that should have, it should happen, it should be there. Everybody else has it, but
it's kind of been a thing, but it was kind of wonky to get.
Yeah.
You actually had to run it from command line. So Visual Studio didn't have it.
Oh, gotcha. So yeah, but now it's like a first class citizen. Or at least I'm going to say it is. So y'all go pick that up. I was too scared to update this. What I showed you tonight is actually 3.1. I was too afraid to update to 5.0. Although we've done some updates at work, they've been inconsequential. I mean, it was, change out a couple of things here and there and just get going. Like it wasn't a bad migration. So unless they lied to me, but
yeah, I think Ryan Richard asked earlier if there was a new Blazor stuff.
I was about to start touching on that because of that question. Some of the better things as far as in the framework itself are some lazy loading of components.
Yes.
So it touches on what he talked about earlier, whereas you have that large download up front in the WASM world, whereas now you can lazily download that when that component is being called.
Yes, that's a big one. I know another big one that comes along the lazy loading route is if you're using MVC and .NET Core, you can actually embed Blazor into your MVC pages. So that is something new coming with Framework 5. So that's all part of their goal of that one framework. That pretty soon you're gonna be able to embed Blazor into a Xamarin app, which at that point I think is just gonna be called Maui. Xamarin's gonna kind of go away at that point, and you're just going to have Maui? Have Maui. So yes, you're going to get all of your web bindings and everything in your mobile platforms. So they're going to slowly consume everything. And like I said, that's, Maui's kind of starting off like Blazor started off, where it was, hey, we have this idea. Let's see if it gets any traction. And then a year later, it's like full steam ahead. So Maui is heading in that direction. I'll be interested to see if they continue to call it Maui whenever it actually comes out.
Yeah, probably not. But...
So. But it's there, and they have previews for it. You can play with it for your mobile bindings. That way, it's kind of going the route of a lot of the stuff that you're going to see is going to be similar to like React Native, where it's just kind of that write once, run anywhere. Not necessarily a PWA, but actually kind of compiles down to something. But you could actually write PWAs with Blazor. So if you want to go that route too, there's actually it's called Bionic, I believe. There's a package out there to run Blazor in Ionic. So if you're really into pain and suffering, go and download that and give it a shot and see what happens.
No, don't. I'm just going to say that now.
But, yeah.
God, I had something on my head. Like I watched a little bit. I didn't get to watch a lot today because meeting after meeting, but I did watch a little bit yesterday, and everything I saw was pretty good. The new changes in C# 9. I think yesterday was also the release for their new Egium-based component that you can embed into WinForms and WPF. So I think across the board we've been getting some pretty good updates.
Yeah, they're
from
really
this .NET Conf.
Yeah, I know. Last year it was kind of. I felt like it was like 4 or 5 major things, and then a whole bunch of fluff around it. It's like, hey, look what's coming to, Xamarin Forms, opt into the beta, and then gRPC was big. I don't know if that's taken off like they were hoping for it to. I know I've had some issues with people adopting it, but it's fun to play with, and it's really nice if you're really into a microservice architecture. That's something worth looking into. I know they've been making improvements on that.
From what I saw in the docs yesterday, it is their official replacement for WCF.
Yes, they actually have. They have some stuff out, some literature out there that actually help you do your migrations from WCF. But what if you have ASMX? Like, I mean, how far back does it actually go? Anyway, poor Bedford.
If you're running that, though, just convert over to .NET Core Web API. I mean, you're not.
Yeah. So, but anyway, next week, we have the SQL Server user group talking about the SQL engine. That's actually something that I'd be interested in. I don't really care too much about SQL stuff. I'm pretty open about that, but the SQL engine is always something that's fascinated me. So, I'd like to sit in on that and listen to it. So. There'll be that. December, we're hoping for some sort of social. I don't know what we're gonna do. Typically, we go meet at a bar and drink, but that's not an option. So maybe we'll send out a Teams link and everybody can pile in and we can harass each other.
Do a virtual drink.
Yeah. I mean, you can use Discord too. And then we can have a giant gaming session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely a possibility. So we'll kick some ideas around. I'm really liking the Discord one. So it's also a little bit of marketing tech, but
I could put up the links to the speaker. That's Deepthi Goguri. She's the one speaking about the SQL engine, and she's doing a lot of speaking lately. It seems she was dropping some links over the past couple of days for all the different. I think she was at the SQL Pass, the summit maybe, or at least she attended it. Yeah, that's who's speaking. We have the meetup event. Let's see.
Oh wow, I didn't even. I should have had the. My apologies for not looking at Discord.
The meetup event, and we got the YouTube link.
What time is it? 6:30.
From the future. I should get that in a second.
Oh look, man.
Yeah, that's everything you need for that meeting.
Cool. Yeah, so we hope to see y'all there. I think we had pretty good attendance tonight. Again, thanks to everybody for showing up.
Yeah, thank y'all for coming.
Yeah, we enjoy doing this, but without y'all, it's completely pointless. It'd just be me, Bedford, and Jeremy talking to each other. Not that we wouldn't do that anyway, or haven't done that anyway, but it's nice to actually have some interaction with people. So.
Thanks, COVID.
I know. It's bittersweet.
All right.
So, all right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and end it there. Unless anybody else has anything else. Everybody enjoy y'all's night. Again, hope to see y'all next week. If not, December. And I think we had some interest for a Blazor talk in January. So I'll get started on that, and we'll do a little bit more of a deep dive into other features other than components now that I've done what I wanted to do with components. So, all right. Well, with that, go ahead, Bedford. You want to drop it?
Yeah. I'm gonna need y'all to smash that subscribe button and hit the like button as hard as you can, and then gonna need you to truncate the bell icon because I am a SQL dude. Truncate it. Destroy it.
Nice.
Y'all have a good night.
All right. Later.
Bye.